Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to be doing a digital illustration of this drawing right here. This, if you go to my last video that I just put on my YouTube channel, I did this drawing with Bic pens and markers on Strathmore Tone Tan paper. And on my channel going forward, I really wanted to get back into some digital art. I love doing it. And so from now on, when I do an illustration, I'm gonna do a digital version of it as well, just to kind of, grow my skills in digital art. With this drawing, I am using an iPad Pro. There's little cat teeth marks in this pen because we have 3 cats. So if you're wondering what those little dimples are, that's what they are. So iPad Pro, it's a really fun drawing tool. I love the iPad. We've had it for 3 years now, I think. This is a 12.9, and I use Procreate. Having said that, I have really wanted to explore some more digital illustration tools. I have a Wacom Cintiq 21UX that I bought like 10 years ago, and the thing costs $2,000. So I'm gonna be using that, and then I've contacted a few companies as well that make tablets and drawings monitors. Huion sent me one of their tablets to try out, so I'm gonna be doing a video on this guy. I have a few more coming as well, because I realize not everybody can afford a $1,200 to $1,300 iPad Pro, and it's just one of those things where I think the technology has gone a long way since I spent $2,000 on a Wacom Cintiq, and I'm really curious to try some of the newer tablets. The Cintiq is cool. I'm gonna do a video on that, probably a comparison video just to show you guys like what $2,000 would have got you 10 years ago versus what $200 can get you today. But that'll be for future videos. Let me know any products you guys are interested in, and I'll see if I can't get my hands on it to try it out. But for this video, iPad Pro, this is a really fun drawing tool. I know a lot of professionals like to use the iPad Pro for, as their digital sketchbook, but they tend to use Wacom like 22-inch to 24-inch monitors for their professional work. So, that's something to keep in mind. But as far as just sitting down and drawing on a tablet, the iPad Pro is pretty awesome. So let's get into this illustration right here. So I'll kind of just show you guys my process real quick. So when I start out an illustration, I just block everything in with the tool with like just a light color, and the brush I use is Jasinki. I actually have a modified Jasinki brush where I got rid of the transparency for my pen and ink work, and I like it a lot. I just like the feel of it. Kind of when it comes to this stuff, it's all about what you like as an artist. So once I get kind of my forms figured out, and if things bug me, at this stage I also work on character design a lot, which I change this stuff quite a bit. Like his face completely changes by the end of this painting. So that's the beauty of digital art, is you can get your main drawing down and then decide to completely change things, and you're not penalized for it at all, just the little bit of time you spent doing it. So you can see I totally change his arm. I move it out a little bit further from him. I move her around a little bit. Those are all awesome, the benefits of working digitally. So once I get my, underdrawing done, that's when I start going in with pen and ink style drawing. One thing I want to mention about this drawing is this is going to be very interesting, because you're going to see it go from a line art pen and ink like this, cell shaded like this, so very flat basic drawing, to a very painterly illustration like this at the end. And I filmed the actual drawing process of this, so you guys will get to see that in this video as well. But I just did a time lapse for this first part. So pen and ink kind of goes down like this, real simple, just kind of outlining what I had drawn. So I'm just going to show you guys my brush that I use, and then a few of the layers that I create for this illustration. I don't use a lot of layers. First bottom layer is just the paper tone that you guys saw me add. This layer is the original sketch layer, and then I'll kind of turn off some of these. This is just that drawing, the original drawing that I put next to it. So this is my color layer. That's what that looks like. And that's behind the shadow layer. So you can kind of see, that's how I add my shadows in there. And then above that is just my ink layer. Now the brush I use for this part of the drawing is the Jasinki eraser brush, which I turn the opacity all the way up. I think the original brush has the opacity turned down, so where it kind of, you can see through it a little bit, but for my black inks, I like the opacity turned all the way up. So, and this is kind of what that looks like. I'll just do a quick little example. I like it because you can get real thick and real thin. And like I said, drawing on the iPad, it's really intuitive. I mean, the only thing that feels odd about it is the smooth surface of the iPad. Some people like that a lot, and some people much more prefer a paper feel, which you can get. You can buy those for the iPad to get a different kind of resistance texture feel. Some of the future drawing tablets I'll try out definitely have more of a paper feel, so I'll be curious myself to see if I like that better. But yeah, just wanted to show you guys a quick little sketch on what that ink kind of looks like. Let's just make that real time real quick. So yeah, and that's pretty rough. I actually like working with this ink style really rough. Actually, I like it better when I'm really loose with it versus as tight as I got with this drawing. So at this stage of the illustration, I was pretty much done. I posted this to my community on YouTube, and this is as far as I had gotten. This is a cell shaded, very simple comic book style illustration that I like to do. I like this style. But like I said, I felt like the personality just wasn't showing through as much as I would like. So I decided at this point to do a more painterly style. Cool thing about digital art is I just duplicate this drawing and then start deciding how I want to go forward with a painting. So the first thing I do is I want to get a little bit closer in on the characters. I want to really work on their expressions. Like I said, I felt like they were a little bit stale, just not a lot of character there. So I'm going to zoom in, crop the image so I can focus a little bit more on the character's personality. After I get the drawing cropped the way I want, the next stage is to flatten the illustration. So I flatten all my layers. Like I said, when I approach something in a painterly fashion, I want to paint. I don't want to really worry about layers at this stage. I want to get everything kind of looking painterly. I'm going to blend out using the smudge tool all those harsh black lines. The other thing I did too is I turned all my blacks into like a darker kind of brown color with a transparency layer. That way those black lines, when I blend them into the colors, they don't kind of have a gray look to them. They'll blend in with a little bit of brown. So it'll have like a sepia kind of look to it. It's interesting that this type of smudging the drawing and kind of taking something you spend a lot of time refining and just breaking it all down, smudging all the edges, it's actually really satisfying. It's kind of a fun process. I think it's fun too because I like the way it looks better. Like I definitely prefer the painterly style than the ink style on digital art. Just my taste, what I like to paint. In fact, if I had done this drawing differently, I wouldn't have started with an ink outline or anything. I would have just done it completely painterly style. I would have done a sketch and then started blocking my colors in with the round brush. So a totally different process if I had planned on doing a painterly style from the very beginning. So when I'm not using the smudge tool, I'm using the painting brushes. It's the round brush to add in all my colors, any colors I'm adding over the top of this. And that, I really like that brush for painting. So one thing I didn't mention when it happened, but if you can see the paper background is much darker now. I just completely added contrast and darkness to that, and it really added a cool effect when I did it. I knew right away that I was definitely going to keep it that way. It kind of gave it that dingy steampunk kind of like atmosphere. And having a dark background, I definitely like painting on a dark background versus a light background. So right here, basically I realized that the gears and some of the parts of the drawing that are fine when it's an illustration don't work for a painting. I really want to create focal points. I want things that I don't want you to pay a whole lot of attention to kind of blend into the background a bit more. So I really focus on like smudging out a lot of those gears in his arms and just pushing them to the back of the painting a little bit. As I worked on these characters, I kind of had an idea of like, especially since I've worked on them, this concept for a little while with the original sketch in my sketchbook, and then I spent a good amount of time on this digital illustration, really thinking about who these characters were. And they're kind of like henchmen in my mind for maybe some kind of syndicate or some steampunk underworld. She was kind of like a boss character in my mind, but in this illustration, I see them a little bit more as equals. One thing I struggled with throughout this illustration was the color of the copper, the metal that the guy is made out of, and just different parts. I had a couple of different like gold and then copper, but the copper never really got dingy enough looking for me. If I had spent a little bit more time on this illustration, I would have definitely added a lot more texture to the metal parts, all the metal parts, even the steel, like that part. I mean, it's all pretty flat. If I really wanted to flush this thing out, I'd need to spend at least another 20 hours on it, something like that. I think I only had maybe 2 or 3 hours into these illustrations, so it wasn't a great deal of time. But for that amount of time, I was actually pretty happy, especially with this one, the way it turned out. A lot of the work that I do with the smudge tool, you can kind of see me adding in details with the smudge tool, and a lot of that is just pulling the black areas through the light areas just to kind of, and it gives these cool like indentions, and you can add pretty decent detail with the smudge tool. It's kind of a fun thing that you get used to, and it's a different way to work too. It's definitely very uniquely digital. At this stage of the drawing, I knew I wanted to have some kind of symbols or logos, something like that. Like I said, these two characters, in my mind, are part of some kind of syndicate or underworld organization. So right here, I start to try and work on some kind of symbol or maybe a texture, something like that. And for her, I just did, maybe she's like a certain type of alchemist or something like that. So I gave her a symbol on her hat that might identify her as such, and I did one for him as well. So this is the finished illustration, and I'm pretty happy with the way things turned out. I feel like I accomplished what it was I set out to do from that original ink illustration, digital illustration, and that's give the characters a little bit more personality. I definitely feel like I nailed her. She comes across as like this unique kind of like psychopath, but she definitely has a personality to her. I would say this is a drawing that I actually might come back to at some point, just to work on more. I feel like there's a lot of things, the watches on her arm, there's a bunch of things, the goggles on her hat, that I would like to actually spend time refining and making look way better than they do. But again, it comes down to, time. Do I really want to invest more time in this illustration, or do I want to create a new one? That's always the dilemma for me is, have I taken this one as far as I want to take it, or do I want to work on something new? So here's all three of the illustrations side by side, so you can kind of get a sense of all three of them next to each other. You can definitely see the different aesthetic that each one of them has and brings to the table. So let me know which one is your guys' favorites in the comments below. I'd love to hear your feedback on this video. Like I said, I plan on doing these a lot more going forward. So pen and ink on paper, traditional illustration, followed by a digital illustration. So that's the video, guys. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you later.